I was talking to a very, very close friend of mine today, and she's been suffering terribly with mental health problems recently, tremendous amount of pain. And I said, why didn't you tell me? So I didn't want to bother you. I went, oh, okay. It's just that if I had a mate and I knew that they really cared about me, and I had a problem that related to something that they do or deal with or talk about in their daily job, I might ask them for help, maybe. And she said, no, I couldn't ask you. I said, do you ask anyone? She said, no. I said, does anybody alive on the planet today know how bad you got? And she said, no. And she was saying, I'm stuck. Nobody helped me. And I said, but you didn't ask. You didn't ask. To help her understand the situation that she was in that I saw, and my sort of frustration and impotence because it's already passed, that I can't help now because she doesn't need my help now. It's already gone. I tried to come up with a metaphor. And the metaphor I came up with was, if there was a man and he's shoved into a room by an evil man, and in that room he's trapped, he's locked in, and then the room slowly fills up with water, and eventually it's going to reach the ceiling and he's going to drown. But on the wall is a telephone, and if he picks up the telephone, he can ask for help and the water will be turned off. At what point does that man's refusal to pick up the phone and ask for help become his responsibility? I mean, it's almost like he's having a hand in his own murder, because he could stop it by doing something, but he doesn't. That's my first metaphor. It relates to depression and a sense that nothing we can do can help, and nothing we can do is going to make any difference. I will tie these metaphors together. The second concept I want to deliver onto you is not a metaphor, it's a description of research. It involves dogs. I don't like it when they do stuff to dogs in research, so we'll pretend they did as humans. They didn't. And it's actually where the foundation of the concept of learned helplessness comes from. It's from an American psychologist called Martin Seligman. I'm reading from Wikipedia, which is why my head is going down to my laptop. 1967, University of Pennsylvania. As an extension of his interest in depression, he was studying depression. And through studying depression, he came across this phenomena that he termed learned helplessness. And in this study, he took 3 groups of students, not dogs, but dogs, 3 groups of students who were volunteers, and they were placed in harnesses. In group 1, the students were simply put in a harness for a period of time, and they were released. Nothing happened to them. Group 1, put in a harness, can't move, period of time passes, then released. In group 2 and group 3 of these volunteer human students, they existed in yoked pairs. The students in group 2 were given electric shocks at completely random times, which the student can end at any moment by pressing a lever. Each dog in group 3, each student in group 3 was paired with a student in group 2. Whenever the group 2 student got a shock, the paired dog in group 3 got a shock at the same intensity and duration, and they also had a lever, but the lever did not work. They can stop the shock. This one cannot stop the shock. They have a lever, but this one's lever does not work. Bear with me. To a dog student in group 3, it seemed that the shock ended at random, because it was the paired student in group 2 that was causing it to stop by pressing his lever. Thus, for the group 3 dogs, the shock came from nowhere, was meaningless. It was like a bolt from the blue from God, and there's nothing you could do to stop it. It gets more interesting now. and more relevant to the times we're living through today. In part 2 of the experiment, American psychologist Martin Seligman, he took the same 3 groups of dogs and he tested them in a shuttle box apparatus, a chamber containing 2 rectangular compartments divided by a barrier. So you have 2 compartments, compartment 1, compartment 2, and a little barrier here. So you have your students in there, right? They can jump over the barrier at any time. All of the students could escape the shocks on one side of the box by jumping over a low partition to the other side. So student in a box, partition here, it's only knee high. We shock the student over here. He's got bare feet, and he goes, ah! So he jumps over, and in this compartment, there's no shock. The students in groups 1 and group 2 quickly learned that there was a means of escape. They quickly learned the task, and they escaped the shock quickly. Most of the dogs who'd been in group 3, where for them the subjective experience was that they were shocked inexplicably for an unknown duration, and it just stopped, and they didn't know why. They had no agency. They had a completely externalized locus of control. Their response was different. The group 3 students, which had previously learned that nothing they did had any effect on the shocks, simply lay down passively and whined when they were shocked. This means that those that had been caused to believe that there was nothing they could do in a scenario where all they had to do was jump over the little knee-high fence, they didn't. They lay down and they cried. They lay down and cried and continued to be shocked. They didn't even try. In a second experiment later that year with new groups of dogs, Mayer and Seligman ruled out the possibility that instead of learned helplessness, the group 3 dogs failed to avert in the second part of the test because they had learned some behavior that interfered with escape. They wanted to rule out that there was another factor other than learned helplessness, and they did. They effectively ruled it out. You can look up how they did that if you want to. In Seligman's hypothesis, the dogs do not try to escape because they expect that nothing they will do will stop the shock. Listen to this. In order to change the expectation, experimenters had to physically pick the dogs up and move their legs, replicating the actions the dog would need to take in order to escape from the electrified grid. So if you were a group 3 dog, you would just lie there and take it. And the experimenters, it doesn't say it here. It doesn't say it. Oh no, it does say it here. They offered them food. They threatened them. They made loud noises. They're like, come here. And come on, get over there. Nothing would make these dogs move. They had to pick them up like they were puppies and take their feet and go, move your feet like this. To change the expectation, experimenters physically picked up the dogs and moved their legs, replicating the actions the dog would need to take in order to escape from the electrified grid. This had to be done, not once, but at least twice. So for some dogs, this took 3, 4, 5 times. So deep into learned helplessness and depression had they sunk, before the dogs would start willfully jumping over the barrier on their own. In contrast, threats, rewards, and observed demonstrations had no effect on the helpless group 3 dogs. This is the essence of learned helplessness. Learned helplessness is almost like a biological state that a depressed mammal, any depressed mammal, will go into. I shouldn't say that. I'm not big on animal psychology. I know of many mammals who are capable of sinking into depression. Maybe it's not all. How? By receiving pain that they experience as external to their agency. And they just internalize the belief there's nothing they can do. Depression, I believe, should be understood as something mammalian, as something that is, we should explore the element of it that is physical and that is evolutionary and that is rooted in learned helplessness. So I've explained to you what learned helplessness is now. It's discovered by American psychologist Seligman, doing some pretty horrible experiments with dogs where they were convinced that nothing they could do would stop the electric shocks. So when they were put in a situation where they received an electric shock and they were perfectly capable of escaping, they simply lay down and cried. And that this is mirrored in the experience of my friend, who I told you about the anecdote at the very beginning, if you missed it, where she suffered great psychological torment and didn't tell me, her mate, who's into psychology. And if I couldn't have helped her, I know how to use the counseling directory. I know how to look up therapists and check them out and interview them and all the rest of it. Done it for myself. I've done it for clients. Could have helped her. We were in contact 4 or 5 times a week. She said nothing because she didn't feel like she could ask me. This is depression. This is learned helplessness. And I asked her, how many human beings on the planet know how bad this got for you? 0, just her. She's the only person she told. No, she didn't tell no one, but there's no one person who knew the full extent of her pain. How does this relate to the scenario that we're living through right now? And then the essence of rebellion. I believe that we have become depressed. I believe that we have received so many conflicting signals, so much gaslighting, so much misinformation, so much incompetence. Sometimes the misinformation and the gaslighting really is incompetence, but it's funny how this incompetence ends up having the same effect. The total demoralization of the human population. People giving up. They won't jump over the knee-high fence. They won't jump from the electricized compartment to the non-electricized compartment. They won't do it, even if it's only a step away. They just will not do it. This is broad-scale depression. This is broad-scale numbing out. This is trauma. The human population is now sinking into trauma. We are going into shock. And as we go into shock and we sink deeper and deeper as a people, as a species, every day, the chances of us doing anything about this, to rebel, go down. Why? Because of learned helplessness. The more depressed and demoralized you are, the less likely you are to move. This is biological. This is mammalian. You don't even have to do it very long to somebody. You just give them conflicting information, cause them to believe that they're the source of their pain, cause them to believe perhaps even that their loved ones and their community are their own enemies, tell them things that aren't true, force them to repeat things that aren't true, communism writ small, force people to lie, force people to do things that they know are not right. And their spirits will break. Because what is a person going to feel about themselves? What are the people at YouTube who are enforcing these preposterous, anti-scientific censorship rules? They know it's wrong. There's just simply no way that the majority, and I stand by this, the majority of people working at just YouTube will know that this is wrong now. They know it's wrong. They know it's wrong. We all know it's wrong. We all know in our hearts this isn't right. This isn't like, do you believe in the V or you don't believe in the V? That's not about that. I'm talking about propaganda. I'm talking about mentally. I'm talking about psychology. I'm talking about the suppression of information and the coercion of information and the installation of spin and agenda into the simple discussion of scientific truths. It's gone. And it's being enforced right here on this platform. And I claim the CEOs know, the employees know, everybody throughout the entire pyramid knows to some degree that this is wrong. And yet they are doing it anyway. We all know that this ain't right. It doesn't matter. It's not a left-right argument. It's not a black-white argument. It's not a do you V or do you not V argument. It's not that. We all know you don't suppress opposing voices. Not in a modern liberal democracy. We all know this. We've all been alive long enough to know this. You could be 20 years old. You could be a kid and you know this because you've always lived it up until 2 years ago. So if you're 20 today, Up until you were 18 years old, you lived in a modern, first world liberal democracy, imperfect, corrupt, capable of evil, capable of genocide, capable of unjustified wars in foreign lands to steal natural resources. Yes, 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 I admit it openly, freely. But you still knew you were living in a first world, modern, liberal democracy up until the suppression of information began and became broad scale, became hyper normalized. People on YouTube just accept it. Everybody just accepts it. The employees at YouTube accept it. The content creators at YouTube accept it. It is wrong. It's wrong. It's wrong. You have to let people speak. You have to let people speak. If it's true, if it could be true, if it might be true, if there's scientific evidence that indicates the possibility that it may be a thing and you suppress it, you are guilty of evil. This is evil, pure evil. There's no excuse for it. There's no moral ambiguity here. So don't do it. Stop. Stop. Don't do it. Rebel. The greater the crime that you're being asked to commit in the name of something, then the harder you must rebel. The greater the sin that you're being asked to do in the name of some agenda, then the more courageous you have to be in your rebellion. Yes, it will suck. Yes, you will be punished. Yes, you might lose your job. Yes, you might lose your position. Yes, people may turn against you. But my God, if we don't try, where are we going? Where are we going? What's at the end of this road? We start here with propaganda and the suppression of scientific data. We pretend that there's one science. Where? Show me the field of science where there is completely unified universal agreement on any subject. Take the most certain, fixed, this is absolutely the way it's been for 100 years subject. I'll show you dissenting voices. Are they not doing science? Is dissent anti-scientific now? Is up down and left right? Is obedience strength? Well, what are we doing? You can't suppress opposing voices because they don't suit a pre-existing narrative and claim that you're not engaged in propagandizing people. You cannot claim that this is a platform for freedom of speech anymore. You can't. But it could be. It could be. But we must step over the platform. We must get up and do something. Our challenge now is not to get in a recently made, hastily designed plane, as my grandfather did. Well, as one of my grandfathers did, and then go and fly in the sky and shoot at your opponents in the air and hope you don't die that way, which you probably would because it's pretty dangerous. Firing machine guns at each other in the air. My other grandfather, who was in the parachute regiment, he would fly up in the hastily designed plane and then jump out the fucker to go and fight hand to hand. One grandfather was against the Japanese, the other grandfather fought against the Germans. And what happened to him? He was in a slip trench one day and a mortar hit him in the head. It didn't go off next to him. It conked him in the head and it didn't go off. And it went bonk off his head and then cut his arm off. And he survived. He went on to be a beloved school teacher and a headmaster. Very, very popular guy. I knew him for years. Great guy. And my other grandfather went on to be a director of chemical engineering at Unilever. These are not our challenges, folks. This is not our bravery. This is not our bravery. We don't need to do anything that dramatic or film-worthy. We just have to stop complying. We just have to stop complying and stop lying. Stop saying things you know are not true. Stop joining in to suppress dissenting voices. Stop indulging in this masturbatory, narcissistic mass psychosis of ganging up on people, rounding on people and scapegoating them and attacking them just to shame them into silence. How do any of you who do that imagine for a second that that is a worthy and righteous thing to do? Where is your morality? Where is your shame? Where's your humanity? And what do you think is in it for you? Like, if you help by doing that, what's your fantasy? That you'll be rewarded on the other side? What will your reward look like? What do you think is coming? I assure you, comrades, it's nothing good for anyone. For anyone. It will be bad across the board. So don't do it. The greater the sin you've been asked to commit, the stronger your rebellion must be. The greater the crime you've been asked to do in the name of some agenda, whatever the agenda is, the greater the courage you have to have. We don't have to jump out of planes. We don't have to fire machine guns at other people in planes or jump out of trenches or parachute behind them. We don't have to do that. That's not our challenge. But we're so depressed and so disconnected from each other and so disconnected from life. We don't even have the strength to just say no. And that's all it is. That's all it is. If everybody just says no, it's over. It's over instantly. You just say no. No, we're not doing that. We're not playing this game anymore. But it must be, if not everybody, a critical mass of people. Maybe, I don't know. This is not my thing. But like, let's say in a given population, 70% start just saying no. They say, I'm not going to lie. I'm not going to join in with the suppression of information and the suppression of evidence. I'm not going to work at YouTube and help them to downvote, shadow ban, or outright ban videos that are exploring scientifically in a cold, calm, dry, sober way other options of response to the threat that faces us right now. Nobody should be doing that and then going home and sleeping like a baby. Nobody should be doing that and then going home and using the salary they earned to do that, to buy food from Uber Eats and to watch Netflix. But they are, and they should stop. They should simply stop, because it is wrong. We have the ability to do something. Yes, learned helplessness is a powerful force. As I said, it's mammalian, it's biological. Once you're in the grip of that learned helplessness, you're numb, you're traumatized, you're in shock. You're like, I don't know what to think. I'm terrified, I'm confused, I'm angry. I get it. I get it. I get it. I really do. You have my sympathy. You have my compassion. We have to fight. We have to fight. We have to fight. Otherwise, there won't be a world left worth fighting for. And there won't be people in it to be able to fight. And it'll all be done. It'll all be over. You must push back. Final point, and then I'll take questions. The thing that's driving our depression is the overconsumption of toxic content. I'm not going to be that guy who tells you get off social media and don't use social media and don't enjoy it and don't have a good time. But I am going to be that guy to tell you that the consumption of content in and of itself online, even if the content is pH neutral or it's positive, is actually toxic. If it's very positive and you're using it very carefully, that's great, but you're still handling a toxic substance. You're not evolved for this. You're not evolved. I am not evolved to ingest content digitally. So even without hijacking my attention, polarization of political views, hypersexualization of everything, the monetization of eyeballs and all that stuff, I'm not even talking about that. I'm saying you and I shouldn't be ingesting content online. We can, and we'll be just fine, in the same way you can drink a gin or drink a beer and feel good and be fine. But it's not what we're evolved for, and it's intrinsically toxic. Then when you start to factor in polarization, the hijacking of attention spans, our attention spans are getting shorter and shorter year on year. Our IQs are dropping. We're moving into some sort of period of contraction. The age of expansion for humanity has clearly ended. Now we are contracting. Fine. That's not the worst thing in the world that we're moving into contraction. Let's contract into something more sustainable. Let's contract into something that's a little bit better, that's not so exploitative and not so aggressive and violent with no thoughts of the long-term consequences of our actions. Let's tone it down. Let's become humble again. Let's let go of our narcissism. Let's get back to each other. Let's get back to the things in life that really count. The online world, through multiple means, will corrupt and warp your mind, and it will damage your relationship with the truth. Use of social media will damage your relationship with the truth, because it's not a truth-telling machine. The artificial intelligence is not conditioning your mind to be more truthful or to recognize more truth or to think more critically. Right? I don't think anybody's going to argue with me in the comment section about that one. Nobody believes that. It's there to entertain you. It's there to stroke your ego. It is masturbatory. It is there to make you feel good. It is there to appeal to your intellectual vanity. It is there to make you feel like you are right and the others are wrong. Well, we've been using it for years now. What good has it done us? Just look at the last 2 years. That is a direct consequence. That is a direct consequence of that. You can draw a straight line between the two. Be humble. Be less hopeful. Be less propagandized. Be less marketable to. Don't watch advertising. Don't listen to advertising. When it comes on, switch it off. If you're on public transport and you see an advert, cover your eyes. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. I mean, literally do this. Don't let that content in. Don't let the content in. Protect this. Protect this. Protect this at all costs, now more than ever. Come back to life. Come back to people. Be humble. Be open. Be kind. Be a human being. We are numb. We are depressed. We're in a state of learned helplessness. And because we're numb and we're depressed, we're seeking more and more intense and artificial pleasures that is binding us more and more to the machine every day. Let it go. Detox. It's shit. It's garbage. It's garbage. You're an alive human being. Yes, you will feel more pain. This I promise you. Yes, if you come back to life and you're humble and you're open and you reestablish your relationships with people and you treat them with respect and you treat them with love, it will hurt, because having the armor on means you're in less pain, but having the armor on makes you numb. It makes you numb. Go and apologize to the people you should apologize to. Do it. Do it today. Just say, I'm sorry. Act like this is it. Act like this is the apocalypse. Act like this is the end. Act like this is the book of Revelation. Do that. Do that. Say it's now. Okay. Make amends. Make amends. Make amends. And say sorry. Humble yourself. Return to nature. Return to other people. Get off the internet. Stop watching mainstream media. And say no. That's all you have to do, is just say no. Just don't comply. Don't comply with this, and don't let yourself be bullied into saying things that you don't believe are true. I'll take a couple of questions and then I'll wrap it there. So if you can make them one sentence long and end in a question mark, that would be wonderful. This is the End by Jim Morrison. No eternal reward will save us now for wasting the dawn. That's Jim Morrison, right? Oksana says, Richard is our secular preacher. Less and less secular every day, Oksana. But thank you. Okay, no questions. No problem. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you enjoyed that. And I hope that it was useful. Be kind, be humble, make amends with people. None of us live forever. And remember that the time that you have here, you can't get back. The chance you have to love here, you can't get it back. Your time, your attention are magical. You put them onto something and it will grow. It will grow. You want to grow people? You want to grow kids? Give them your time. Give them your attention. You want to grow me? You give me a like. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your time and your attention today. And I look forward to speaking to you again very soon. Cheers.